Good morning, everybody. If we could get you to take your seats, we're going to begin the meeting. We're going to start with calling the meeting to order and the flag salute. If we could all stand for the salute, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to make note that all the commissioners are present this morning. Are there going to be any agenda changes?
No.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll now go to public comment for any items that are not on the agenda. Please try and sign in so that Annette can get the proper spelling of your name. We'd appreciate that. And go ahead.
Good morning. It's good to see you folks again, as always. It's my custom to bring home-baked chocolate chip cookies or candy to you folks. But today, I decided to bring something a little bit different. I was heading up here this morning and stopped in at a store, and I thought to myself, what would be appropriate? And just happened to stop in a Dollar General store. And the item that I thought, I looked around the store and I wanted something that said Dollar General on it. I couldn't find anything. And then I went over to the over-the-counter drugs, and I found this headache relief tablets. And I thought, well, that's quite appropriate, seeing as we have some interesting people in the crowd today. And this is extra strength. So, and oftentimes when I come to a meeting, rarely do I do. I had to get up at 3:30 this morning and come from San Francisco to be at your meeting. A lot of times I need this. So I'm going to give it to Annette and just line up behind Laddish when you need it. I'd like to end by informing you that your project, which was a rezone from RR to RA that you sent to the Board of Supervisors, was rejected. They decided not to look at it in its entirety and decided not to send it back to the Planning Commission. They felt that it would jeopardize their chances in some way. That it would. So, just want to help you guys.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that has any public comment this morning? Okay. Then we will start our public hearings. Excuse me, we're going to go to the consent agenda, approval of minutes. So I was not here last week, neither was Commissioner Laddish. Do you three have any changes to the minutes? Because we're going to depend on you to approve of those minutes. We won't be voting on them.
Not from me.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve of the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Abstained? That'd be you and I? Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. So now we'll go to the public hearings. And the first one we're going to start out with is on the West Point Dollar Store. And Gina, you're going to be doing that presentation for us. Thank you. Okay. So here we are once again. We actually had this item agendized in May on the 11th, for which two commissioners were absent. Commissioner Wooster and Commissioner Vicelli were not here. I did include the entire packet from the May 11th Planning Commission for your reference. Again, we'll just kind of quickly try to get through this, given a brief overview of what happened on the 11th, and then subsequent to that, the things that have taken place. So once again, we have before you a tentative parcel map for the Dollar General proposed project in West Point. The subject property is located on Main Street in West Point at 430 Main Street, located right almost smack dab middle of the town itself. You can see it highlighted on the location map. Aerial photography is the big bare spot right in the middle with the arrow pointing. There is, the parcel literally spans from Main Street all the way to Highway 26. The project is described as being a tentative parcel map to divide a 4.42 acre parcel into two parcels. Proposed parcel 1 is 1.33 acres. Proposed parcel 2 will be 3.09 acres. The purpose of the parcel map will be for constructing a Dollar General store on the smaller parcel of 1.33 acres, which is proposed parcel 1. In addition to the parcel map, there is a request for a road modification, which we'll touch on that a little bit further in the presentation. Here's a copy of the tentative map. I did provide you with a slightly larger copy in your packet. I apologize you didn't get a full-size copy. I just inadvertently forgot to actually request additional copies, knowing that we had already previously had a full copy in your previous Planning Commission packet. Didn't cross my mind that there may be a possibility you guys didn't keep that, so I apologize if it was, hopefully it was legible. As I said before, just a brief summary of what happened on the May 11th meeting. After staff's presentation, we opened the public hearing and immediately jumped into specific concerns that were raised not only in the public hearing during public comment period, but also in writing prior to the meeting. Those concerns basically were surrounding aesthetics and how this project was going to conform to the community of West Point, being that it is a historic mining town community, gold rush era type era. The design of the project was very important to members of the community as well as the commission. So we had brisk discussions regarding aesthetics, building design, lighting, signage, parking, landscaping. Pedestrian safety was a concern, in addition to scenic vistas. That meeting, as you obviously know, since we're here today, there was no action taken at that time. We did have further direction from the Planning Commission, and after our discussion, it was obvious that we had some insufficiencies that we needed to deal with. So the request from the Planning Commission was for our staff to strengthen the environmental document by further analyzing impacts directly associated with the Dollar General. That resulted in a revised initial study. We were requested by the Commission to address aesthetics, greenhouse gas emissions, noise, in addition to making mandatory findings of significance. We did do a revised initial study, found a mitigated negative declaration. That document was circulated for 30 days. As a result of that, we did get 5 comment letters, 2 in support, 3 with concerns, and 1 petition with 74 signatures. In relation to project design, that was a big topic of discussion. So the commission actually directed further review of the design of the project. We were asked to make findings that we were asked to design a project that was found compatible with West Point. We formed a small group which basically consisted of anyone who had written in and provided us with letters of comment, whether they were for or against the project, in addition to anyone that had spoken during the public comment period. So we reached out to everyone on that list and invited them to a meeting on June 7th. Not all attended, but we did have a pretty good sized group that included special interest groups in addition to citizens living within the West Point area. Again, we talked about design, landscaping, lighting, signage, parking, and again, public safety. And again, the focus focus of this meeting was to create a design of the project that better conformed with the historic Gold Rush community. So design features that were added included parapet roof, timber brackets on the front awning, metal trellises with climbing vines. We included the color terracotta as an exterior color addition. The building will actually have lap siding and a concrete masonry facade, metal panel canopies, as well as decorative shutters. Elevations are shown here. This is thus far the approved plan. As I said before, we did add a few things, did change it up, and this is what we ended up with. I believe thus far everyone is satisfied with this. There were some additional requests that had not been agreed upon. There was a request from the small group to extend the awning roof by 2 feet. And the purpose of that was to provide a shaded seating area for customers and members of the community alike to be able to rest in shade and not be impacted by the sun. At that time, the developer determined that re-engineering would be too substantial, and they did not agree to the extension of the roof line. Additional topics that were briefly touched on were community bulletin boards, wall murals, bicycle racks, adding a bench in the front of the business. In addition, there was a desire to control outdoor displays of in the retail store. All of those things were found by staff not to really be conducive to the actual design or the purpose for the meetings, and didn't really find it necessary to have to control that by either mitigating it or conditioning it. We felt that was better handled through between the developer and the community. I don't think they're completely opposed to some of these ideas, but staff felt that it wasn't really our place to get involved in bulletin boards and wall murals and things. We just kind of felt that better left between the two, the developer and the community themselves. Signage was another hot topic of discussion. Currently, the code allows one square foot of signage for every 1 linear foot of store frontage. And fortunately for retail stores and other commercial development, you get to choose which elevation you want. So of course we chose the longer elevation, giving them more signage, which allows them 130 square feet of signage. So the signage proposed is 2 signs, one on the wall, front of the building, and the other is a monument sign. Total signage is actually less than the maximum required, which is 128.95 square feet of signage. There was a request from the small group to switch out the metal base with a stone base, for which the developer accommodated us. In addition, there was also a request to replace the backlit sign with direct lighting. So they didn't want it illuminated from the inside, there's thus lighting up the entire sign, but rather wanted direct lighting right on the surface of the sign. All in all, they met all of the requirements, but there still seems to be concern with the amount of signage, and I think later on in public hearing you may even have some discussions about desires of the community to have even less signage than what they've proposed at this time. Staff is satisfied with their signage. They are actually under the maximum allowed signage, so we see no need to further reduce it. Here's a copy of the sign plan, as you will also find in your packet. Lighting, again, another topic of discussion, very sensitive. If you look around the community of West Point, there's not a lot of lights. Let's face it, it's an old historic community. There's very little new development. I would probably venture to guess the Ace Hardware is probably the newest addition to the community. So So we're starting at a very low, a low threshold, a low base to start with. So of course we've got all kinds of standards that are required with new development, and that is parking and landscaping and all of these things that you're required to have by code. So if you got a parking lot, you need to have the parking lot lit for safety reasons. So we had lots of discussion over lighting. There was several revisions to the lighting plan. What you have before you obviously is the most recent revision. Lights have been reduced. The numbers of light fixtures have been reduced. Basically, the overall consensus is fewer lights, the better. The whole topic was, how do you reduce lighting without sacrificing safety? Obviously, people have to be able to move around in the parking lot. They've got to be able to walk on the sidewalks. In addition, lighting after hours is also for the deterrence of criminal activity. There is currently no adopted lighting ordinance in the county, so we don't have much to go by. But I feel confident that after today we can probably come up with a really good solution that everyone can be happy with. So obviously the whole object was to reduce impacts to night sky. So again, they reduced the pole heights from 24, the originally proposed 24 feet to 14 feet. In addition, in order to reduce the impacts associated with the nighttime lights that would be on, the developer proposed a pre-programmed lights that will turn on at dusk, and they will stay on for 1 hour after the store's closing. In addition, there will be wall mount fixtures for safety purposes that will stay on from dusk till dawn, but I believe those will be reduced as well. Not that you can actually read this because it's way too small, but there's a copy of the lighting plan, which should be the same one that you have before you. Parking, there wasn't a whole lot of discussion about parking. The code requires 46 spaces for that size building, one of which has to be handicap accessible. The parking plan that was proposed by the developer includes 46 spaces, and instead of one handicap, they actually included 2 handicap van accessible spaces. There's very little discussion on parking, so we feel really good about the parking plan. They're meeting all the requirements for back out distance and the size of the spaces, so staff is happy with the parking plan. So illustrated there, you can see where the parking is in front of the proposed building, in addition to the side of the building, just adjacent to the proposed road access that will provide access to both proposed parcel 1 and proposed parcel 2. Kind of give you a better picture of what that's going to look like. We superimposed the development site plot plan overlaid onto a aerial photo, which I believe is also included in your packet. So that kind of leads us into the request for a road modification. This map has actually been revised once. So the original tentative map came in with proposed access off of Main Street for proposed parcel 2, access off of State Highway 26 for proposed parcel 1. After realizing that terrain prohibited access from Main Street, the developer revised the tentative map to provide access to both proposed parcel 1 and 2 from the access road that will take direct access off of Highway 26. That amended map was circulated. As a result, the County Public Works Department actually had to require additional improvements to that access road. They asked that the road itself be developed to a commercial road standard template L, which includes 2 12-foot travel lanes, 9-foot parking lanes, 7.5-foot sidewalks, all in a 60-foot right-of-way. Well, that was a little much for the developer. It wasn't going to fit. 60-foot right-of-way is pretty excessive. Couldn't manage to fit the development and the parking and the landscaping and the 60-foot right-of-way all in that footprint. So in addition to the tentative map, they requested a road modification. And the road modification is to reduce that standard to 2 12-foot travel lanes for ingress and egress. They've proposed a separate walkway with a path from the road right-of-way to the front door of the Dollar General. The code requires that with a modification request, it must be accompanied by a certificate or certification from an engineer, basically stating that public safety or traffic safety will not be compromised with the modification. They have done so. Public Works has reviewed the modification and recommends approval of the modification to 12-foot lanes. Rolling right into landscaping, for the most part, the landscape plan was fine. Nobody really had any issues with it. They were very satisfied with the selection of plants and the design itself. The code actually requires 5% new landscaping. It also requires that the landscaping be maintained in a healthy and vigorous manner in perpetuity. There was one request, and actually a couple of requests, but the specific request was to replace the fractured rock mulch with wood chips. The group found that the wood chips were more compatible with the community, being their tie into the timber industry and the availability of the product itself locally. They felt that the rock mulch was really inappropriate and the wood chips more appropriate. I have to apologize because I think there was a miscommunication on my part. The landscape plan actually replaces the rock mulch with the wood chips in the front of the building. Now, it was the developer's understanding that they didn't have the desire to change out all of the rock mulch, just simply what you could see from the road. It really makes no difference to us. I don't know if there's going to be an issue with that from the public. You can ask the developer, but I don't think there's going to be a real issue with them if they have to switch out all the rock mulch with the wood chips. I think the fractured rock mulch probably would be less maintenance down the road, but again, we can discuss that. If that's what you want to require, then we can switch it out. It really doesn't make a difference. So here's your landscape plan as illustrated. You've got that in your packet. One thing we did add to the landscape plan, and that was a statement that the row of existing evergreen trees along the north boundary of the property that is basically the adjoining boundary with the Ace Hardware store property. There's a whole row of evergreens that were planted at some time, and it was found through the initial study that those were significant enough to the project design, to the overall appearance of the project, that they should be retained. So the landscape plan actually illustrates with a note, illustrates the trees on the plan in addition to a note indicating that those trees will be retained for that purpose. Pedestrian safety. Community had great concerns over the safety of the school children. The West Point Elementary School is just down the road to the south at the next intersection, right there on the corner of Bald Mountain Road and Highway 26. The concern was that school-aged children being let out of school will be enticed by all the goodies that are sold at the Dollar General store, and they will wish to actually travel on foot up Highway 26 to the Dollar General. If any of you have been to West Point, you'll know that there are no sidewalks in West Point, and oftentimes there are no shoulders along any of the roads. So pedestrian travel is basically, if you can get off on the side of the road, that's great. If not, then you're going to share the road with the highway traffic in town. So, being that there were, see if I can get ahead of myself. There were requested improvements by the small group, and those improvements included restriping the existing crosswalks, I believe by aerial photography, I've identified what I think is 2 crosswalks. It looks as though there's one that crosses Bald Mountain Road, and then there's one that crosses just kitty corner to that, and I think I have a photo in the next slide. I think there's another one that actually that goes across Highway 26 in that same intersection. But there is currently no other crosswalk from the intersection of Bald Mountain and the next intersection, which I think is Winton Road. Correct me if I'm wrong. Thank you. So there was a concern that kids would need a crosswalk to cross over in front of the Dollar General store. So the request was to build a crosswalk at that entrance over 26, over to the other side of the highway, right in front of the Caltrans maintenance yard. In addition to that, they requested that the developer gravel the shoulders to provide a more suitable footpath for pedestrians to traverse. And the concern for children's safety continues on. They wish to have signs put up somewhere along the road. It appears that they would like them somewhere in the vicinity of the Dollar General, saying "Watch for children," just identifying, that there are possibility of children being out on the highway, warning vehicle traffic that there may be children that they should be considerate of. So here's the location of the Dollar General. I didn't bring my pointer, I apologize. But I think you can read proposed Dollar General up towards the north. You can see the big bare spot. The West Point Elementary School is further down across the highway, which is the bottom. Oh, thank you. How was I just figure out? Proposed Dollar General, West Point Elementary. This got, Caltrans kind of got brought into this because of all the concerns with the highway and basically the condition of the road and the side, the shoulders and the crosswalks and all of that now. So bringing Caltrans into it, they took a look at what the proposals were, and basically, I think I jumped ahead of myself. Basically, they didn't find that there was any warrant for a crosswalk. Let's put that off to the side just a little bit. They prior to the May 11th meeting, as a result of the recirculation of the map, the Caltrans actually requested a traffic analysis. So the developer did a full traffic analysis, and through that traffic analysis, the traffic engineer found less than significant impacts and that there was no warrant for improvements anywhere on the highway as a result of the Dollar General store. Caltrans reviewed the document and concurred that there was no justification for any improvements. But again, there's concerns amongst the community that there will be, safety issues or concerns with pedestrian traffic. So Caltrans reviewed their request for additional improvements and actually found that since there's no pedestrian facility on the other side of the highway from the Dollar General store, that there was no justification for a crosswalk in that location. Signage, there's specific regulations regarding signage. There's approved signage. You can't, Caltrans just doesn't put up any old sign. There's certain approved signs through their manuals that are okay. And those signs have to go in certain appropriate places. There was no actual proposal made, so they didn't really comment on whether or not specifically located proposed signs were to be approved. They basically said that they would have to review it, but as I said before, there's really no proposal for any specific location, but that is something out there that the community is concerned about. But staff is going to stand by the traffic analysis and support the engineer in his finding that there is no improvements warranted. So moving right along, under general plan and zoning, the general plan land use designation for this area is the West Point Community Center, which is basically land that is set aside for intensive land usage generated by multifamily residential, commercial, and light industrial. The zoning is compatible with that land use designation, and it is C2, general commercial. The use itself of a Dollar General is a permitted use in the C2 zone. New parcels, creation of new parcels in the C2 zone when services of district water and district sewage disposal are provided may go down to as small as 7,000 square feet. Obviously, we're exceeding that, so there is compatibility and compliance with the general plan and the zoning. Under CEQA, we did do the revised initial study. Project-specific significant effects were mainly revolved around aesthetics. We did find that there was mitigation necessary, and basically the mitigation measures say upon approved design. So whatever the design it is that we approve today, whether it's as proposed before you now, or whether it's with modification, the plans that you approve today will be the plans that Dollar General will have to abide by. And they will have to abide by those at the time of a building permit. We can't directly tie them to the tentative parcel map because the development will occur actually after the parcel is created. So you have to actually record the map prior to the Dollar General actually, building their parcel or building out their parcel. So you got to create the parcel, then the development comes. You can't really tie the development back to because it's this constant circular chasing thing. So we thought, how are we going to ensure that this happens? Well, like I said, whatever happens today will be what they are held to, and that will be at the time of the building permit. So at the time that the building permit is issued, all of these plans will be submitted to the building department for review. Some of which have already been are already in the building department, some of which will have to be revised, but nevertheless, whatever they submit to the building department and to us will be as approved here today. They will have to comply with that. So it'll be our responsibility as planning staff and as building staff to ensure that they are building out this project as you approve. And that will include all of the structural features that we approve today, in addition to the colors and the lighting and the landscaping and the signage and the parking. So everything that we're looking at today will be part of the approved project. Performance standards in the C2 zone are pretty basic. Parking standards require 200 spaces, one parking space for every 200 square feet of gross floor area. As I said before, 5% landscaping. The lighting stuff is pretty basic. It's a shield and direct exterior lighting so that it doesn't directly shine into adjoining residences. And they have to have designated solid waste storage areas for recycling and trash. And they've illustrated that as well on the plot plan. There was no discussion over that topic. So in conclusion, the tentative parcel map is consistent with the general plan and the zoning. The road modification will not compromise traffic safety and is recommended that you approve through the Public Works Department. In addition, added design features of the Dollar General we find are in conformance with the historic character of the community and the surrounding buildings, and satisfactorily improve the visual quality of the development itself. Performance standards that are in place in the base zone and shall be applied in addition to the specific project-approved design relating to the parking, landscaping, lighting, and signage, all kind of wrapped up into one pretty little package. We find that it's all compatible with the area, and that we recommend that you approve it as proposed.
I think a lot of commendation needs to go to the staff as well as to the public and to the developer for working things through as much as you have. And by the end of the day, hopefully everyone's going to be happy.
I hope so.
We'll see.
That's the whole purpose of this exercise. So in addition, I kind of bombarded you with some last minute things. One of which is you have a photo which will be part of a presentation by a member of the public. He asked that I provide you with a copy of that, so we accommodated that request. In addition, you have a large photo of a Dollar General, not sure where it's located. Is that Copper?
Winters.
Oh, Winters,
Company.
okay. Anyway, Commissioner Laddish asked that I make copies of that for everyone. I think he's going to have some questions. We have a revised resolution before you. We had received some suggestions from Commissioner Laddish, which actually thank you very much. I appreciate those because once I incorporated those into the resolution, it just really made a lot more sense. It didn't do anything to the findings. It didn't change any of the conditions. Basically, it was just a better layout of the events as they happened, which is what should be included in those whereases in the resolution. So I have additional copies if anyone needs to view that, but that is before you as well. And I think, and then we had some late correspondence from Colleen Platt. You should have received an email in addition to what I've provided you. It's the same thing. So assuming that you read your email, if there isn't anything new before you, not sure if you had gotten the email, I decided to go ahead and print a copy of it for you.
You ready for questions?
Ready for questions?
Good. One thing that the community obviously is very concerned about is pedestrian safety,
Right.
and especially the safety of the school children. Your staff report notes that the painted crosswalk at the Bald Mountain intersection is inadequately striped. What needs to be done to that? And I don't plan to be pinning any responsibility on the developer.
I really think that's probably a question that should be asked of Caltrans, and I'm not sure. I think they might be present at the meeting today. But it appears by what I've heard from members of the public and what I have observed myself, but of course I'm not Caltrans and I'm not a traffic engineer, but it looks as though perhaps it just needs to be restriped.
Yeah, so it's Caltrans that would do that. It's not another county office since it's a state highway.
Right, that's
It's
their,
Caltrans.
well, I'm not exactly sure about the one on Bald Mountain. I'm not Public Works. Maybe if Carl Baker is here, he could probably touch on that later on in the public comment period.
I think it's important the county do what it can to encourage, at least, if not actually do.
So I guess it's going to be up to you folks to decide whether or not that is the responsibility of the developer, or whether that's just, insufficient crosswalk that someone else perhaps needs
Something
to be
needs to be
responsible
done.
for. So that'll be up to you folks to decide.
The overview photograph you showed of the area showed the 35 mile an hour speed limit when you're coming south from the Ace Hardware,
Yeah.
and a 25 speed limit. I assume that's when
Right,
you're
yeah,
going north.
I got a little sideways in that part of the,
And I just-
in that part of the presentation. I apologize. So just what would be north to the proposed Dollar General is actually a reduced speed limit. There's a sign that reduces the speed limit to 35 miles an hour. Here is the intersection that we keep referring to, Pine Street, Bald Mountain, and State Highway 26. Here is the school itself, and there is also, coming from the south side, there's also a reduced speed limit, and those signs are specific to the school children. school pedestrian crossing,
So
signs.
there isn't a
And a
similar-
reduced speed limit of 25 miles an hour for the school zone.
There isn't a similar reduced to 25
There
as
is
you're
nothing
coming
up
south?
here, and I'm assuming that has something to do with the regulations of where the signage
Mm-hmm.
is supposed to be placed according to their manual. But again, if Carl Baker is here, then perhaps he can touch on that
Yeah,
as
because
well.
I was wondering if the county can do whatever it can with Caltrans to just say, please have all possible school signing on the highway
Right.
be there, but that would be more public works than.
And it seems like that should be in place regardless.
Well, yes, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. And I don't, it seems to me that the county can do that, can encourage Caltrans to do that. One comment says that Caltrans has cleared brush and spread gravel along the shoulder of Highway 26. Are you familiar with that development? And it also states that further work and signage would have to be ordered by the county as a separate road study and approved by the state. Can you comment on that?
Everything has to be studied.
Yeah, is that,
So it's much like, I would assume it's much like our application process where, you just don't go out on a Caltrans highway and start putting up signage and putting in crosswalks and things. You have to propose a plan, and, that plan, that application for permit may have to be accompanied by special studies, depends on what it is, but, again, I'm assuming it's much like our process, for development applications.
but would that be something that the planning department itself would be involved in coming up with a plan and request to the state?
I suppose we could be involved in that. It's not something we would normally take on. I think it's more of a public works issue, but we have worked with County Public Works and Caltrans on looking at circulation issues elsewhere. So we could certainly look at that and work with Caltrans and the COG to come up with a plan to ensure it's as safe as possible.
If Public Works isn't here today, could you perhaps prod that in the
We'll-
right direction?
Yeah, certainly.
Thank you. In the latest initial study, you're, not by MM, is that mitigation measure? Is that
Yes.
what- Okay. Mitigation measure 1C states that the development of a Dollar General store must conform to the approved design features of the project and lists all sorts of aspects. But, and it says as provided in attachment 1. Attachment 1 itself does not include the site plan and the signage detail sheets.
Okay.
Could they be added to attachment 1?
Absolutely. So, I think through this discussion today, we could make that very clear in the record that all of those exhibits shall be included in that, in this overall approval.
Yeah, because as I understand it, the mechanism here is by having those mitigation measures set forth in the initial study and reference to attachment 1, the developer has his roadmap, so to speak, that
Correct.
everything that's in that attachment 1 is what's going to happen, what's required to happen.
Correct.
Okay. Where do you find the binding specification that the monument sign would be direct lighting rather than backlit? I notice on the signage details, it says that the lights hanging above the sign are decorative lights. And I will raise this with the developer. I don't know if that means they're just there to make things look old-timey or whether the sign is actually interior lit with those lights as a...
The request, perhaps maybe the developer representative shall be able to better answer that. But it's my understanding that it's not supposed to be, the monument sign is not supposed to be backlit, illuminated. It's
Okay.
not supposed to be interior. It's supposed to be direct lighting.
Yeah, we'll check with him.
Yeah.
And all the exhibits that you have provided us, including the revised lighting exhibit, we are now up to date, right? With the-
Yes.
The packet plus
I certainly
this.
hope so.
Okay, good. That's all I have.
I have a few. According to the staff reports, the tentative parcel map project is for CDDG West Point LLC. But the landowners are Henry and Donna Rose.
Correct.
Who is the applicant for the approval of the TPM?
The applicant is, let's see, can't see. So the applicant is the CDDG West Point LLC, which is the representative for the Dollar General, on behalf of the Dollar General.
Kind of a basic question. How can CDDG West Point LLC request approval of a tentative parcel map, a lot split, on somebody else's property?
Well, because they, upon approval of their map, they will be purchasing proposed parcel 1. And I'm assuming that there's probably some kind of agreement between them and the landowner for perhaps, providing the county with all the necessary documents and studies and perhaps even, paying for the application. So the application itself is under the ownership, if you will, of the applicant with the authorization from the landowner.
Do we have a written authorization from the landowner?
Yes, they have signed all necessary documents in order to move forward.
Okay, did the application for the approval of the TPM refer to or describe or make it clear that the only purpose of the TPM was for the construction of the Dollar General store?
Yes,
So the TPM and the store were tied together from the beginning?
from the beginning, they tied it together. The tentative map itself was made reference to Dollar General. The application was made in reference to Dollar General. So the intent was very clear from the beginning.
Okay, on the lighting plan, I see the revisions have included the requirements for the controlled times. The resolution doesn't refer to the exhibits B3 through B5, should it?
Yes, it probably should.
It just covers B1 and B2.
Yeah, I can go ahead and make that correction. Actually, I thought I did. Are you looking at the revised resolution?
I'm looking at the one that came with the
The
latest
one with all
packet.
the fancy highlight? The one that I handed to you today?
Let me find it.
Sorry. I caught that error yesterday and included those, the reference to Exhibit B1, Dollar General Site Plan, Exhibit B2, Dollar General Elevations, Exhibit B3, Landscape Plan, B4, Lighting Plan, B5, Site Plan, or Sign Plan, sorry.
Correct, you did, it just wasn't in yellow, so I didn't catch it.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
There's been a request that a lighting consultant consider reducing the double fixture pole light next to the monument sign to a single fixture pole light. Do you have any comments on that?
Well, no, I think that's a large enough area that, obviously they found it necessary to have a double fixture. in order to adequately light up that area. If you notice, that's actually the location of the sidewalk that's gonna come around from the highway. You know, that landscape area, the entrance into the building. So, you know, I suppose if they didn't find it was necessary, then they would have eliminated it. But again, that'll be up to your discretion to determine whether or not they can exclude that second fixture on that pole.
One more question. There's also been a suggestion that an automatic irrigation system be required.
Yes.
What's your
So
view
in
on that?
the final revision, for purposes of design, we didn't really ask to see the irrigation, you know, plan for, you know, irrigating the actual landscaping. But the landscape plan that will come in for review will actually include irrigation. Didn't think that was really necessary for the purpose of these group meetings and the design of the project, but it is required that they actually provide irrigation to the landscape in order to maintain it, and that will be included in the final plan.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Would that irrigation be on a timer necessarily?
It could.
I think it should.
It's required that it be on a timer.
I have one quick question. On the site plan and the tentative parcel map, there's a difference. The site plan shows a fire turnaround on parcel 1.
Yes.
Shouldn't that also show up on the TPM?
That illustrates, the site plan illustration is actually for purposes of the road improvements, not necessarily. I see what you're saying.
I mean, it shows,
It absolutely could include that, and probably should. We can easily have them illustrate that full turnout on the tentative map itself. I think there were so many revisions that it just got excluded from that earlier revised tentative map.
one of the things you started this presentation with was the comment that the access from the back on Main Street is now been eliminated, and I assume that's for parcel 2.
Proposed parcel 2, yes.
So is that fire turnaround, that easement, is that going to be that access?
Yes.
All the more reason why it probably should show up.
We can have them include that. You're absolutely correct. I think it was just an oversight. Like I said, the map itself was revised prior to the whole discussion about road improvements and that turnaround for fire purposes. So they should absolutely include that on the tentative map, and they can revise that accordingly.
Well, it doesn't need to show up on the tentative map. It's a condition of approval, and it will show up on the final map.
Okay.
It's condition number 3-5 of Public Works conditions. So it will show up as an easement on the final map.
Okay.
I do have a couple of questions. Commissioner Sisk, do you have?
No, sir.
It's unclear to me as a neophyte to all this, is just what is the mitigated negative declaration? And we have one sheet that says it's labeled mitigated negative declaration. And on it, there is no specific tie to the mitigation measures themselves. And I would think that you could add on your finding for negative declaration, where you say, on the basis of the whole record, including the initial study, comma, the mitigation measures contained therein and included herein by reference. Then, if this is really the mitigated negative declarations, there's at least a specific reference there to the actual mitigation measures. And I can, want me to say that more slowly?
Sure.
Okay. After initial study, under the finding for a negative declaration after initial study, there'd be a comma, and then the words, the mitigation measures contained therein and included herein by reference, comma. And then last night I came across the CEQA guidelines 15074 that under C says we need to provide where the location of the documents and who the custodian is that pertain to this. You can get that language from 15074. And in D, it says with a mitigated negative declaration, you need to adopt a program for monitoring mitigation conditions, which I imagine to comply with that, you don't have to be terribly specific. But probably ought to at least refer to a monitoring program in the mitigated negative declaration. What is your understanding as to what is the mitigated negative declaration? At one reference I saw, it apparently includes the initial study.
It does. The mitigated negative declaration is basically all of the documentation, including all of the attachments, the traffic studies, the biological studies, anything that is incorporated as part of the environmental review. The sheet here is basically the formality of here's the action that we've taken that gets filed. But for someone who wanted to see what it includes the mitigation measures, it includes monitoring, it includes anything that was contained within that analysis. Okay. So the initial study, it is sort of an oddity of CEQA, the way it's worded. We file this sheet with the recorder, so it provides public notice that it's been adopted. But for someone to look at the negative declaration, it's the initial study and the findings and the okay. conclusions that were
so I do
evolved from that.
It's good to put that language in.
Yeah, it's probably not necessary, but it doesn't hurt.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? So I'm going to reserve mine until the developers finish speaking. If the applicant would like to come up and do their presentation now.
Good morning. Derek Wilson with Rubicon Design Group on behalf of the applicant. I agree with you that staff has done a great job. Gina's worked really hard on this. She gave a very thorough presentation, so I don't think I have much to add. I would just say that, yeah, we worked with the public. I think it was a productive process. We reduced the lighting. We made some amendments to the sign. The decorative fixture that was referenced, what that means, that means that there's a fixture mounted on the light, on the sign that will illuminate the sign. So it's not internally lit. The decorative refers to the fact that it won't just be an ugly galvanized steel thing. It'll be integrated into the look of the sign. I would like to clarify that some of the items that Gina put on the list of things that we were not able to include, my memory is that we agreed to the bike rack. We have no problem with that. There's room on the site to do it, so I'm happy to agree to that. Some of the other items on that list we're not necessarily opposed to. I should also say that the meeting with the public I think was productive. They were very motivated and creative group, so I kind of enjoyed that meeting. They had a lot of solid ideas. I think that some of those ideas are operational and need to be left up to an eventual store manager. So I think that the dialogue continue where the public could approach the manager and make proposals about bulletin boards and things like that. That's really all I have to say. I'm happy to elaborate if people have questions, but otherwise I think Gina has covered it. Thanks.
I do have some questions.
Really? I'm surprised.
But first, I really very much appreciate the spirit in which you've come to this process and dealing with the public and with the planning department. I mean, lowering the poles by 10 feet, doing the earth tones color scheme, the cedar brackets, the sign on the store with illuminated parts being just the yellow part, not, I mean, the letters themselves. all of the stuff that you've agreed to, it's very much showing that you're willing to work with the community and with the planning department. And I want to assure you that I have some questions that I'm asking in the same spirit of that you've demonstrated of working with you to reach the best result possible. If you could lead us through the lighting plan and direct, and specifically I'm looking at the projecting lights from the store and their necessity. And in doing that, I'll refer you to this picture from the Dollar General store in Winters, where the lights on the front of the store are much lower than what you would show and are decorative and apparently provided enough light for the parking spaces and this sort of thing. But if you could also speak to the double fixture out at the driveway.
Yeah.
I'll just kind of
Sure.
leave it to you for a while.
Okay. Yeah, we did reduce the lighting overall. All the light fixtures will be shielded, so they won't actually shine directly off the site. And if you look at the lighting plan, it shows that at the perimeter of the site, the lighting projection drops to very, very low numbers or to zero.
And is that, like looks like in the middle of Highway 28, we're down to 0.1. And does that basically mean if you take another 2 steps and you hold out a sheet of paper, no direct light will be shining on that sheet of paper? I just don't know exactly how this works.
Yeah, that's what that means. There's always a chance that you'd get some odd reflection or something. I can't promise you that a photometer
Right.
would go to zero, but it would be very close to that. Yeah, yeah.
And by the way, and if any of my fellow commissioners have questions on lighting, I don't have ownership of this
Yeah.
subject. Then you now have 14-foot poles, but then they have 2-foot bases, is that
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
so that gets them to 16 feet.
Yeah, and there was quite a bit of discussion with the public about that. And you get into a technical trade-off where you can have one tall pole that lights a big area, or you can have a bunch of shorter poles that light smaller individual areas. The consensus was that they wanted shorter poles. I'm fine with that. Initially, that meant to our lighting designer that he had to add a couple extra poles, and I think that confused people. And I can understand that. It seemed like an increase when we were talking about a decrease, but we've never contemplated an increase in overall site lighting, or certainly not in off-site, projected lighting. So getting those smaller poles required some configuring, and we eventually were able to drop one of them from the front row of parking. So there's only a single one there now. To be frank, I've worked in jurisdictions where they would say that's not enough lighting. I think it's appropriate for here, so I think it works. But we're getting to rock bottom here. If we continue to cut lighting, there's going to be areas of the site that aren't lit, and that leads me to that double fixture at the front. That's the main entrance. That's Caltrans, as you heard from Gina, is treating that as a roadway. That's because it serves 2 parcels, that qualifies as a roadway. Sorry, not Caltrans, that's the county in that case. So I feel that we need some lighting at that entryway. If the commission is comfortable reducing that more, we don't, we're not gonna push back endlessly on that. But we're getting to the point where lighting on the site is pretty low.
I would think that on that, you're coming from the dark highway and you're turning in, that perhaps you don't need the brightest light there. I mean, it reads 12 point something right under that light. And I would think that you would only need a single light on that.
If that's the will of the commission, I'm happy to agree to that.
We'll see if it is. And I assume that tilt 0 means all the lights are just pointed straight down.
Yes.
And the shields actually make it so that if you would be hovering at 50 feet, you would be getting no light from the lights. It'd be the reflected light from the parking lot.
Exactly.
Makes
You'd see the lit area, but it wouldn't be shining in your eyes.
Yeah.
Yep.
The important thing is, of course, what the entire glow from this will be into the night skies. And so I think it's very important that we keep it to what's safe, but no more than that. Why do you need the projected lights from the building to be as high as they are and as bright as they are? And which ones are going to stay on at night?
They'll all be on a timer, so they'll turn off an hour after the store closes. The ones that would stay on would be near the main entrance for security lighting.
But would those be those projected lights or lights lower than that, under the awning?
Those would be lights under the awning.
Okay. And you'd be willing to have that note on the lighting plan?
Sure.
Okay. Excuse me a second. And what about it's easy in August to not keep in mind that in December, well, what is going to be the opening hour of this store? What are the hours?
The county would have maximum hours of operation, and the store would utilize those if it was busy enough. If the on-site manager decided that there wasn't traffic after a certain time, they would close early.
And does the county have any particular operating hours requirements?
We do not. So it's really up to the individual business is what they think is appropriate. There could be imposed on a project hours of operation if you felt that there was an issue that raised the level of for example, a use permit for a concert venue would have to shut down after a certain time. They can have concerts till 2 a.m., for example. We typically do not apply hours of operation on a business if they want to be open 24 hours. That's their business model that they want to follow, unless there's some environmental or neighborhood impact associated with those kind of operating hours.
And
I'm going to, for procedural questions about store operations, I'm going to hand off to Joe Dell, who has better information.
Good morning, Commissioners. Derek, he can pop right back up for questions as well, but I wanted to take a step back. Joe Dell with Cross Development, we're the development company working to get the project approved. So when it comes specific to lighting, we have to keep our client in mind, insurance requirements for safety, for their people who are going to be shopping at the store at night. So to step back, the photometric plan you have in front of you is actually designed by a photometric engineer. It's not our putting lights on a thing. It's an engineer who understands our client and their minimum needs to be able to have safety on their site and safety for the public that's going to access the site and use the store. I think right now, like they're saying, we're getting to the point where there's probably a little less we can do on lighting. Dollar General has specific requirements for lighting, and if we get below those, then we have a whole new ball of wax we've got to go unwind and try to get special approval from them. And because insurance requirements require certain safety measures and candle powers for people to see to get to their cars and shopping carts and people walking through the parking lot, I think the lighting plan itself is in a good spot. So Derek's correct on all the shielding going straight down. No light bleed off the property, unless there's reflective light, things like that. All great questions. The two lights at the approach, they're at the minimum candle power that Dollar General will allow for their trucks to be able to get into the site, for pedestrians using the walkway there as well for safety. I would say before we make an adamant decision on lighting, if there is a request for reduction, let me run that by the client first and make sure that they're okay with it. That way we're not putting an undue restriction on them that they can't meet nationally or they can't meet insurance-wise, therefore stops them from being able to operate effectively and safely for the public that's going to be using them.
have you had a chance to look at this picture?
Yes, I built that store.
Good.
So
Congratulations.
thank you.
I mean, it's not the Gold Rush community design,
Correct.
but it's
Not a
great.
Western look, right?
But the lighting in front, on the front of the store is quite pleasant
Sure.
and not super overhead imposing. So we assume that would meet Dollar General's
Sure.
requirements.
Dollar General has prototypical buildings. So they have a prototypical plan set that says, here's where we want our lights. At this height, this many of them. As the years progress, as Title 24 continues to get more stringent, lighting plans change. So that store was built 3 years ago. It used the fluorescent halogen lights, sodium type lights for maximum brightness and safety. So there's probably fewer of those lights. The lighting plans now are LED. They provide a more even light, but they're not as bright as the old type of fluorescent lights that used to be called wall packs that just mounted on the walls. So as those progress, lighting plans change as well. Winters we've got to take it into context. It's inside a city that has lighting in the city already. It has their own special codes that required lighting at certain heights. And so the photometric plan was designed within those ordinances for that city. I'm not saying we can't change where the lights are in the building, high or low, where they are. As long as we maintain a candle power for safety purposes for our client and the public who will be using it and walking through the parking lot and everything, we can position those lights just about anywhere as long as we meet the photometrics that our client would like us to meet. So,
And you agree with Mr. Wilson that the after-hours lights, exterior after-hours lights, can be below the
yes,
the awning?
so typically no exterior lights are lit after hours. The only light that's lit after hours is interior. It's a light over the front door inside the building that lights the front entrance for security. So those lights, every other light around the store typically turns off an hour after operation. And it's all on a timer. It's a very sophisticated system. And the hours of operations, going back to that, Dollar General's hours of operation are 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. typically.
Okay, so our current lighting plan says a few of the wall packs are set from dusk to dawn for security purposes. That is not
I
necessary.
think that's a generic statement. Every Dollar General I've ever seen or built, if there is one wall pack on, it's usually over the receiving doors, which is the only other door into the building. So it's the back side, far side of the building that maintains security. The idea is not to be a nuisance when they're not open. I mean, and not be a nuisance when they're open either. So, but to reduce impact at all. So yeah,
So we could eliminate that statement from the lighting plan. A few of the wall packs are.
I'll check with that. Yeah.
Well, I'm
it's-
afraid this is, if you need to check, why we're going to be continuing this.
Well,
hearing
let's
for
not
another-
continue, but I think what Gina and Peter said is it's ultimately, you guys can make a resolution of how you would want the lighting to be, and the building and safety department would ultimately enforce that when it came in for plan check for the store. So yeah, what lights are lit, that is something that you can say, we want these lights lit at night.
Okay.
As long as they don't limit safety
Yeah.
and security for the
So
building.
one interior light by the front door provides enough to prevent burglaries, or we hope prevent burglaries.
I
And
mean,
that-
it
that's
keeps
what-
the honest people out.
That's what you need.
Right.
Yes. Okay. I was just getting to the question about what the morning, with the morning, if you're opening at 7 and it's December, it's still dark, so with all the parking lot lights and stuff come on an hour before the opening?
Well, they open at 8 o'clock typically. Sometimes, sometimes there's ordinances within cities that say you can only open from this hour to this hour, as Derek, alluded
So
to.
it's 8 o'clock, there shouldn't be any problem with lights
Yeah.
in the morning.
I've never seen them opening before 8 o'clock anywhere. Of course, I don't work all over the country. Back east, maybe they do. I don't know. But typical hours are 8 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Okay.
7 days a week.
All right. So that's fine. We don't need to worry about 4 o'clock in the morning lights.
Correct. Unless there's a malfunction.
Okay, and on the
I'm gonna
I'm
have Derek just stand up too, just in
right, I
case.
think
I'm just gonna
that's
stand here
probably
as
a good
well.
idea. So the monument sign is directly lit by the lights, the decorative lights that we see.
Yes, that was the consensus from the public group.
Okay.
And the sign plan should reflect that. It should say somewhere on there, exterior lit. It should not say interior lit. If it does, it just needs to be
Yeah, I
struck
think
off.
maybe it did on one thing, but I think if on the sign details thing, we can make it very clear that it's not interior lit, but it is exterior lit, then that will help a lot of people. The signage details sheet, just up in one area, talks about the various size signs that are available. And I take it pylon signs are the signs we don't want, the ones that are out by the street that are way up in the air and all that stuff. But I noticed that they come in 4x8 sizes. And since, given the smallness of the state highway that you're building next to, and the general darkness of the area, I mean, Ace Hardware, I think the latest it's open is 5 o'clock in the evening. Would you be able, did I hear a correction? No. Okay. Given the scale and character of West Point and the smallness of State Route 26 itself, are you willing to reduce that sign to 4x6, 4x8, the actual sign?
I think Gina has the dimensions in front of her.
It's 5 foot 1/2 inch by 10 foot 1/2 inch on the sign detail.
Can you pull up the site plan real quick? Gina, would you mind pulling the site plan up on the thing there? I just want to see where the sign is. I mean, if it's got great visibility, I don't see any reason why it can't be reduced to 4x8. Is it there just left of the detention basin?
Yes.
In that little island? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't see a problem with reducing it to 4x8. I mean, it's 5x10, 4x8 should, I mean, it's gonna,
It makes a big difference, I noticed
Sure.
on the list, makes a big difference on the amount of lumens that are.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that should be fine.
So we're gonna reduce the monument sign to what?
The sign part of the monument sign
Oh,
to 4x8,
4x8?
yeah. And within, as far as the other things the community asked for, and I appreciate the bicycle rack being on there, the bulletin board is very, not only good for the community, but good for business. I mean, Sender's Market and Mountain Ranch, I think there are people that stop to read the bulletin board and then go in the shop. And I'm not sure why you couldn't commit now to a bulletin board, but are you and Dollar General committed to seriously considering such additions as a bulletin board and the other suggestions of the community once the project is built?
I think once the project is built, I think the store manager has full flexibility to work with the community to do what they're allowed to do legally in their store. We've had the issue of bulletin boards come up, and so, you know, Dollar General, they're nationally, and so they take into account the national brand, the national look of everything. We have instances in which bulletin boards, even on the property, not even on the building, but on the property, have posed, I mean, they're community bulletin boards. Anybody can put anything they want on the bulletin board. And so that is, to Dollar General, a risk because it could be offensive to the community. It could be, they can't regulate it. And because they can't regulate it, they can't control what gets put on there. So if someone hangs, and this sounds crazy, but if someone hangs a pornographic picture on there, Dollar General is probably going to be the one that gets pointed out for allowing it to be there instead of the community that is monitoring it. I can recall one bulletin board on one store that I've ever done that's been allowed to stay where it's at. It was an easement that was platted decades ago, and it was a community bulletin board put by the Lions Club, and the Lions Club went out once a week and cleaned everything off of it and took care of it and maintained it. And it was a written agreement. Now, if the community wants to do that, I have no problem carving off a little piece of property, but there'll be restrictions that can be posted there. Absolutely no competitors' ads, no, so I think we open a big problem if we start allowing bulletin boards on these buildings
So
when
you
it comes
think,
to.
it's, basically what you're saying is that
I can't agree to it here, but Dollar General very well may say, yeah, we have no problem, but you got to meet these guidelines.
and just
And
the
as long as the
community
community
needs,
says yes, they'll probably allow the bulletin board to be somewhere on site.
and of course,
But I can't guarantee it.
I
So,
understand,
Yeah.
but perhaps you can guarantee that the policy has been for the store managers to deal with the community on items such as this and
yeah.
try to reach an agreement.
Traditionally, store managers, so Dollar General is they want to be a vital part of the community. They don't just want to come and be a store and sell goods and not talk to anybody and just be a retailer. They are vital parts of the communities they come into. They have, and it's probably not even been talked about, but they have a foundation, the Literacy Foundation, that the moment the store's in your community, schools, libraries, all have the ability to apply for grants from Dollar General's Literacy Foundation for money for iPads, for books, for literacy programs for adults and kids in the community. All that is I mean, they've given over $110 million in the past 13 years to the communities in which they operate. So the store manager also has flexibility within the store to have flexibility for the community and what they ask. I mean, just recently, I had a call from a lady in Cloverdale, California. They're doing a big Latino parade and fair, and they've asked for Dollar General he reached out to me since we developed the store, said, hey, would you see who I need to contact at Dollar General for maybe some prizes for this fair and things like that. And so, I mean, took 2 days to get Dollar General to agree to reach out and donate gift cards and other things for the fair. So they absolutely will be a vital part of the community, but they do have legal restraints that prevent them from doing certain things.
Thank you
And
for the
so-
explanation.
Yeah, but absolutely, the store manager has the ability and flexibility to work with the community on special requests.
Moving on to the exterior colors and texture and such, and maybe, Jeannie, you could pull up the slide of the exterior stuff. Where the exterior elevation shows hard plank lap siding, is that actual wood planks installed in a lap, one edge overlapping the other, or?
Yes, it's hardy siding. It's true lap siding. It's laid over.
And it is wood?
Well, it's a hardy cement, but if we want it to be
Oh,
wood,
it's a hardy cement,
it's a
okay.
cement board because it lower maintenance once it's painted.
Okay.
Lasts longer because it's a cement fiber wood, and so it's not wood. It's a hardy. Anybody who knows hardy siding knows the product. It's a cementatious fiber board that it has a wood grain on it. Once painted, I mean, unless
And
you're
it is installed in a
it's
lap?
installed piece by piece as a lap. It's got a 2-inch lap. It's an 8-inch board with a 6-inch presentation, so it's overlapped 2 inches,
And the
installed piece by piece.
Pre-finished metal wall panels on the side shown in sagebrush, those apparently have indentations to at least evoke wooden,
Well, it's a ribbed
Vertical
panel.
plane.
It's a ribbed wall panel, so
Yeah.
it's not just a flat sheet of metal.
Uh-huh.
It does have a contour to it. I wouldn't say it looks like wood per se,
Okay.
but it's minimal on the elevations that are visible to the public. Because the elevations that are visible to the public, we wanted to have the more western feel, the look, the Gold Town feel. So
Yeah.
predominantly the metal panels on the 2 elevations that are absolutely not seen at all by the public.
and the terracotta color is limited to the awning itself, correct? We don't have a swatch of terracotta, but in that listing off to the left side, it shows the awning is the terracotta, and I guess I assume it's pretty close to the color that's shown.
Yeah, I mean terracotta, that orangish brown color is the color that would be used, or as close to that as possible.
So now that I know that the planks aren't wood, I better ask about the natural cedar decorative bracket. Was that plastic that looks like natural cedar, or is it actually cedar wood?
I believe it's called out as cedar wood, so it would be cedar.
It's a wood
Yeah,
bracket.
it would be a wood bracket.
You can understand why I
Oh,
asked.
sure, yeah.
And would you explain why there can't be a porch with posts as some of the public has asked?
So in adapting the building from the initial, so I met with the community probably a year and a half ago originally, or maybe 2 years ago when we first started this process. Large turnout, great meeting, derived our initial design from that meeting. And then once we got through the process and started going through the parcel map process, is when comments began coming in for the parcel map for the look of the building. And so this is where we took a step back at the last meeting, met with the community again. There comes a limit to my ability to fund a project and redesign after redesign after redesign. These aren't cheap buildings to build. And so every time I go back to redesign, I have to completely redesign the metal building. I have to pay an architect, I have to pay the metal building company, I have to pay the site plan guy to fit the building back on the site plan. So, I mean, it's no short of probably $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 for me to make these modifications continually. And so really, right now where I'm at the limit of my budget, where I can, we can make some aesthetic changes where we just apply something to the building, but putting posts in a true porch, you're talking about calculations for wind and snow load, sizing of the pipes. I mean, the posts, seismic, all that, the posts may end up being ginormous posts that are, 5 feet. I mean, that's a little overstated, but they could be huge. It may not even have the look you want it to look like once it's designed, because they have to meet seismic and wind and snow load and all of that. So I think given the current design, it does have the porch feel. That awning, I think the elevation shows that awning sticks out. I believe it's like, I'll have to look at side elevation. It's a pretty lengthy awning that sticks out all the way across the front of the building. So, yeah, then you start putting posts in. Now you've got ADA compliance where you've got to have certain sidewalk widths for wheelchairs, and so now we have more concrete. The parking lot pushes farther out, the building pushes farther back, and we take more land, and so it's a significant change. And we think, well, let's just add some posts. It fixes everything. There's a lot more to it than just adding some posts to make it feel more like a porch.
So we could help you in your budget by taking one light out at the entrance.
That's probably not going to work.
On pedestrian safety, assuming that Caltrans has or will put up all the possible school children signs that it can do, would Dollar General, as the actual tenant of this property, be willing to consider what other owners and tenants do and possibly put out its own signs out near the street just saying, watch for children? Is that something that could be considered?
Obviously, we can't put anything in the Caltrans right away without their approval.
No, I'm not talking about a sign on the highway, but like on a stand on the property that you are on. Just, these signs you see with a child.
Yeah, the little slow man sign.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's plausible. I don't see any reason why we.
I mean, it'd be no different than mounting a stop sign at our approach to stop people from just running out onto the road. The county requires a stop sign there, so the stop sign's there. I mean, if we need to put a sign, do you mean facing the property or?
No.
Are you talking about?
On the highway itself?
So the only thought I would have is,
Can't put it on the highway.
Not on the highway,
if I
but
go
on the
behind the
property
right of way, the sign probably isn't even going to be seen. I've got monument sign, I've got detention basins, I've got landscaping. I don't know.
I'm not talking about requiring it at this point. I'm
Sure.
just saying
if
it could be considered.
I can add a little sign out there that says "Watch for Children" if we need to, but Where it goes and its position is all going to be based on Caltrans line of sight. I mean, when you
Right,
start
I'm-
adding things, even outside the right-of-way, Caltrans has this triangular angle of view you have to maintain at the approach. If we start putting signs and other things there, then we start interfering with Caltrans safety standards. And
I would
but-
appreciate if you would consider it.
Sure, yeah, we can consider it.
Now, the landscape plan lists water regimes, and I was wondering if that already built into that is irrigation plans.
Yeah, that means the irrigation schedule, essentially, when the thing is on.
Okay,
When
and
the
so
program
when it says
runs.
water regime L or whatever, why that would
Yeah.
actually clock into it. Okay.
Yeah, that would be part of the final design plans that the landscape architect
Okay.
would put together.
All right, thank you very much.
Does any other commissioners have questions?
No.
I have statements. Do you have employees that come and go after business hours that need to be in and doing stocking or deliveries, or is all that done during business hours? I'm concerned about you being told to turn your lights off when you may have employees coming in and out in safety.
So we have limited information operations. Typically, I think all stocking and store work is done within business hours.
Okay.
I can't guarantee that. I don't know if
Well, I
the
just
store
want to make
manager.
sure that we're not telling you or someone's
Right.
proposing that you're turning those lights off when you have employees that have to do work outside of business hours when you're open, and that we're going to cause a safety hazard
Right.
issue for employees.
Right, and that's where I agree with you. That's where we start walking this slippery slope of making conditions that really shouldn't be conditioned because we really
Correct.
don't know
I
fully
agree
how
with
the
you.
store operates.
Then they brought up the wood mulch versus using the rock mulch.
Sure.
Concerns with that is that the wood mulch is biodegradable and it's going to just dissipate. So what is your guys' thoughts on the rock versus wood mulch?
So I'm glad you brought that up. Dollar General would prefer the rock mulch. We would prefer the rock mulch, and here's why. We had a store, one of them, and it was somewhere here in Southern California. I'm not sure exactly where it was, but this is what the Dollar General construction managers are telling me. Rock mulch was required by the county, so it was put in. A storm event came, washed all the rock mulch into the Caltrans right-of-way, stopped up their storm drain, backed up floodwaters, and Dollar General got hit with a bill for about $50,000 for mitigation. So rock mulch looks great, and it's biodegradable, and bark
Wood
mulch looks good and is biodegradable, but
It's also combustible.
it is
does start
combustible.
fires.
And so if for feasibility, I would recommend we stay with the rock mulch. It will stay in place better. I'm not guaranteeing it won't eventually wash away. The gentleman sitting next to me over here said Caltrans put some large riprap in a drainage ditch farther south, and it's washed away since then. So in significant events, I think even rock mulch is going to wash away potentially, but it's easier to maintain, it's easier to stay on property, and we're probably going to have less problems with things going into the Caltrans right-of-way in a major event. And so I would recommend we stay with the rock mulch. That's what I would suggest.
Okay. The signage, I'm not supportive at this point of you guys having to reduce your signage. You're already below what the general plan would require you to do. So that's not something I would support. I know that you're saying you would possibly agree to it. That's up to you. But if it were put in front of me to vote on, you have a right to your signage according to the general plan.
Right.
So I'm not going to uphold anything on that. And on your lighting, concerns of road safety and lighting, I think the billboards are blight. That's up to you guys. I don't think we should be telling you put a billboard up or not. I've seen what can be posted on billboards, and it can be pretty offensive at times. So
Sure.
I can understand you guys not wanting to do that. Anyway, so if any other commissioners have questions, great. If not, then we'll open it up to public comment.
I'm good.
Okay, great. Thank you for your time.
You said yes, Karen?
No, I said I'm good.
Oh,
Oh,
okay,
okay.
okay, thank you. Okay, so before we go to public comment, we're going to take a quick break, maybe 10-minute break if you don't mind. Thank you. Started, I'd like to bring, Carl, if you could come up and speak for us, please.
Hi, it's Caltrans District 10, Carl Baker. I just wanted to address some of the comments that we've gotten, some of the suggestions, and kind of provide a little bit bigger of a picture of how to address some of these concerns. We provided comments to the county suggesting that they address active transportation needs, bikes, peds, transit. The traffic study didn't find a need to provide pedestrian infrastructure. I think the real issue with that, as far as pushing back on that finding, is that there's simply no right-of-way. The right-of-way for Highway 26 on this stretch was created in 1856 when the county resolved the area to be a county road. And besides adding the maintenance station across the road, there hasn't been a change to this right-of-way map. So that speaks to a few things, but really the reason highways change are because of community needs and the initiative of the county. The county hasn't seen a need to change this road, and it hasn't changed. There is a bicycle and pedestrian plan for Calaveras County. It was created in partnership with Calaveras Council of Governments, with the City of Angels Camp and Calaveras County. The city and the COG have adopted it. The county has not. So there are improvements included in this plan for West Point. They're minimal, really. They're to provide facilities along Pine over to Main, and crosswalks at Main and Pine. So we'd be happy to work with the county to try to get some of these things done. The real point here is that what can Dollar General do, and that's the county's determination, is what meets your criteria of being able to attribute to Dollar General. They can't put sidewalks in the whole town, and it's good to see people coming out and saying we need this stuff, but having them come out for this and say we need this stuff and then just go home isn't going to solve the problem. We have a regional planning process. It includes the COG, it includes the county, it includes Caltrans, and people need to participate in that process to make these things happen for the community to the extent that they need to happen larger than what can be attributed to the construction of the Dollar General. Just as examples of that, currently the Regional Transportation Plan draft is out for public review. People can review this plan and make comments on it. As far as bike and ped projects, we have projects for Murphy's, San Andreas, Valley Springs. There is nothing for West Point or any of the smaller communities. That's understandable, given the number of people in those communities. On the other hand, if people don't say they need these things and don't respond to things like the draft RTP, then they aren't going to happen. The same thing happens with the general plan. The general plan is going to be addressing what we call complete streets, providing pedestrian, bike, transit facilities with the roads in the county, both the county roads and the Caltrans highways. One of the concerns we get is, well, how can they do that? Complete streets is appropriate to context, and every road has a context. Clearly, you can't put a sidewalk on every rural highway, And this is a highway through the construction of this project that the emphasis is going to change a little bit. And as every piece of property develops, that's how things change. So it's up to the county. What does a complete street mean in this context? We have opportunities to do this planning. We have what are called Sustainable Communities grants that Caltrans provides. We've had applications for all of those same communities that I've talked about and others. We haven't had any for the smaller rural communities. One of the opportunities I've been trying to push is when you look at West Point and what you could build there, it really falls off the edge as far as size of project. It's too small to get a grant for the planning. It's too small to get grants for the construction. But looking at safe routes to school needs for some of the smaller communities in the county is not beyond the pale. Putting them together and trying to put together something that can be funded. We also have the active transportation program statewide, which is going to be funded to about $34 million a year statewide. So there's opportunities to apply for funding to build active transportation once we have the plans in place. To go to some of the more specific concerns about, can we have signs saying children ahead? The MUTCD, the Manual for Uniform Traffic Control Devices, doesn't include any kinds of signs that say, watch out for children. The idea being that nobody wants the liability of saying there's children in the road. What we do have is pedestrians. You can have the stick man, you can put a sign below it that says ahead, that says 500 feet. There's various ways to address that. We also care about the grown-ups that might be walking along the road. So that seems like a way that we could work together to get that done. So if the county chooses to condition that, I think that's something we could work with Dollar General under a permit on. The school signs, I'd have to get some feedback from our traffic safety group. The school is on the other road, sure isn't very far from the highway, so that's certainly something we can look at. Then the other thing that comes up repeatedly is the ditch. So we got complaints about the ditch. The ditch was horribly eroded from the winter storms. One of the bigger problems is that we have this graded site that a permit was issued to grade it without any plan to develop it. And so we get a lot more runoff from a graded site, and we get a lot more sediment coming from a graded site. The hope is that Caltrans can just fill that thing with gravel and it'll be a lot safer for people to walk along the road. We have to maintain a ditch. A ditch is a drainage facility. So I know that maintenance went out and worked on it. I haven't been out to see it, but I suspect they put rock in the bottom of the ditch to try to cut down on the erosion and maintain the edge of the highway. But we can't fill a ditch because we have to be able to clean it, especially when we have a graded site that's sending sediment into it. It's not just picking the leaves out of the top. It's all the other stuff that goes in the ditch. So that isn't really something that we're able to do. But certainly we can plan to change that essentially to get to the point where we could construct a good facility on the shoulder of the highway. There would need to be property acquisition, right-of-way acquisition for that entire length of the property between the Dollar General and Pine Street. So it's not a small thing.
What about the restriping of the crosswalks? That seemed to be an important issue for the community.
So the crosswalks are striped, as I recall, from the school side of the road over to Pine Street, and
Okay.
then from Pine Street across Pine Street on the north side of the highway. Hoping that I got my compass straight. Yeah, so from Bald Mountain to Pine and then across Pine. Typically, we can look at needs for that. But again, it's just like asking for a crosswalk from the Dollar General store across the road directly across. There's no sidewalk anywhere, and we kind of need to know where we're going. I mean, it would help the maintenance guys get over to Dollar General, but they're not necessarily the population that we're trying to address here. They're part of it, but
But existing crosswalks you could restripe, repaint.
yes,
But there's
yes.
none on the
So
state, it's on
if
private county
the
roads.
paint is worn out, that's something that maintenance can go out and address. But really, the point is if we have a plan for what we're doing in this area, you'll get a lot more response because we know how these things fit together. You can justify what it is you want to do. So, we support the county in any conditioning that they want to do to try to address the pedestrian conditions. Our biggest concern is that, conditioning Dollar General to put a sidewalk on the frontage of their property, which has been done over and over and over again, when that sidewalk doesn't connect to anything, that right-of-way has a big chunk taken out of it now to include that, doesn't solve a problem. So, and I'll hand it to the community. They tried to come up with other solutions that weren't making a sidewalk to nowhere. If
Can
there's
you-
questions, I'd be happy to
Yeah,
answer.
could you, just how, the edge of the pavement, how far past the edge of the pavement does the right-of-way go? I mean, does it go across the ditch that has happened?
So
Or-
normally, in most cases, our right-of-way maps show a dimension for the width of the right-of-way.
This one?
In this particular case, it shows fence lines on both sides of the highway. The understanding of that is simply that it's fence to fence. There are other places where we don't actually own any right-of-way. It's just essentially assumed prescriptive use where it's similar. What we maintain is what we consider to be the right-of-way.
So you consider, I don't know if you've seen this picture, but the ditch that has been eroding, et cetera,
Yeah,
that
we
is
maintain the
something you can,
ditch.
you,
So-
you- you consider that a part of the right-of-way, or at least you're taking responsibility for,
Yes.
for maintaining
yes.
the ditch.
And clearly, we want to make sure that the maintenance of the ditch is adequate to keep the road from eroding. Obviously, spending a nickel on the ditch prevents spending $1 on the road. So my main, we can continue to go through and work with maintenance on that. They're, at the same time, they're trying to, just like the county, respond to the winter storms, which is everywhere, so. Thank you. Oh, okay.
So I understand you're going to look at the school signs situation and
The best way to approach that is for the county Public Works to make a request so we know that what we're looking at is what the county wants us to look at, and that they have, thought about the context and what they think is appropriate to the context. That doesn't mean that's the only way for us to do it. I can go back and say, let's look at this. But ultimately, the best way to address this is to have a Safe Routes to School plan that shows that there's been work with the community, that there's been work with the school, that the school supports what's proposed, That's been, over the years, one of the most disheartening things is for everyone to agree that this is what needs to be done to protect those kids, and you go talk to the school, and the school says, we don't support that. And it happens. So we have to go there, we have to do that, and that's why we have to have plans.
Can you tell me, just what is the speed limit in front of this property? I don't know if, because we have 35 coming from one direction and 25 from the other, and I don't know where.
It's 35
Oh.
and 25 when children are present
Ah.
from the school zone. You know, I can go out there and look at the signs, but that's my understanding.
Thank you.
Okay. So it sounds like we need to follow up with COG, which funds are
Absolutely.
limited.
And
And
absolutely-
SB 1's
and-
gonna hurt.
And if everyone goes home and, you know, goes to bed, then it's gonna stay the way it is. It's really gonna take the community, working with the county and the COG to make this a priority.
Okay. And those meetings are the first Wednesday of the month at 5:30 right here.
Yes,
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
We really appreciate your coming.
thank you.
Ready?
We're ready for you.
Are you
So-
sure?
I'm never sure. I'm just gonna, real quick, this is public comment. We stick to the agenda item that we're on right now only, and also it's 5-minute limit. And if you would write down your name, it helps Annette when she's doing the minutes to get everybody's name spelled correctly. Now you
Thank
may
you
go.
very much. Here we go. I'm just going to take a second because I think at 18 months, every minute counts. That's how long this application's been. It's been 18 months since they originally put in their application. And if I put in an application and it took 18 months, I would probably, after about 3 months to 6 months, I would really have doubts whether I want to continue with that project. I would, you know, you've given people more than enough opportunity to comment on this subject. You've given them several bites of the apple, now they're just chomping at your fingers. This project affects working families, the elderly, people who don't have resources, they don't have vehicles. By the way, thank you very much for my bicycle rack that I requested. This is much needed in the community. We have people that Dollar General has hired. They are working over in Amador County. They are very anxious to come back to Calaveras County to work. They're spending money on gasoline. We have, these people are really concerned that this might not get built within this year's building envelope, and that they're going to have to drive on icy roads, and that they might have to quit their job because they're not able to get to work. Those are the concerns that we really have in the community. Elderly people who have to buy their groceries because their family isn't there all the time to take them down to Jackson. They might have to buy milk and eggs, you know, some of these little necessities. They may have forgotten to buy toilet paper or dog food or any number of items. And they need to have that service there. They can't go into the local stores. The local stores are dangerous. If you look at the Trading Post, which everybody touts as the local store to there, it was broken into 2 weeks ago, and the owner, because he makes no money there, and he decided maybe I shouldn't replace the front doors. They took the front doors, and he decided, well, I'll just put a 24-hour person on a cot in there because I'm not making any money off this store. My gas station across the street makes money. We have businesses in the community, another little convenience store downtown. People aren't going to go there. They're just scared. They're scared. There's been a tremendous change in our community. Now we have marijuana growers, lovely people, most of them, but a lot of them aren't. A lot of them aren't. And you know, we say, well, children's safety. Well, listen to me. People are picking their kids up. They don't let their kids wander around town these days. It just doesn't happen. People are gonna, one of the reasons I'm making this quick and I'm gonna get out of here is because I don't want to hear what people have to say about me. Your friends, by the way, Laddish. That's, they'll stop at nothing, these kind of people. They'll drag it on as long as they can. These people need a store. Our community needs this store. We don't need any more of these problems. We don't need people from Valley Springs, from Railroad Flat, coming into the community and telling us what to do all the time. All right? Okay, well, thank you very much for this time. I'm going to go to the other departments and gather gossip while you guys do your thing and come back when things are a little calmer. I can leave my stuff here so watch it, okay?
Okay, is there any other further comment?
I'm the proud owner of the photograph that got distributed. It's Lawrence Fox, and it's German spelling, F-U-C-H-S. And I was here when the delegation, negative delegation, is that what you call it, was postponed in October last year, and I put forth a little statement about the water problem. I've been after Caltrans, the local yard there, for 5 to 10 years. It washes out. I mean, this year was the ultimate with the rains we had, but it has done nearly that much time after time. It's had pieces of riprap as big as both fists, say a half a football, washed 30 feet into my field from the water that comes off of there. Both parcels that we're talking about bring the water, well, portions of both parcels that are graded bring the water to Highway 26 down to my property at a point where there's a culvert comes across from the other side of the street, and there's not much comes through there. In fact, the other side of the street actually brings down what comes off of Caltrans's approach, their driveway. But anyway, this has been a thorn in the side, and I think a lot of it could, this washout that we see here, could be alleviated by having a down box right at the culvert and a grate. You cannot have a walk situation here. People are going to have to pull out into they're going to have to walk out on the pavement to get past that washout. As it says there, that's, of course, I took the worst point. It's 2.5 to 3 feet. The rest of it's 2 feet anyway. And so I guess this probably will come up mostly during the, what was the term? During the grading and so forth. I don't think that I really need to see the water come off of the portion that's not for general dollar. It should go someplace else. There is drainage available off to Main Street, but it's very steep, and I realize that would be a washing problem too. And as Mr. Baker said, it's hard to have a ditch or a waterway along the side with serve both as moving water and moving people, and the water looks like it wins. So, I had questions on the original if the disposal basins were going to be anywhere close to handling the water that comes off of that 03 acres? 1.33? Yeah. And if you add the other end, it'll be horrible. Now the 133 acres is going to be roof and pavement. It's going to get worse. So that's a little problem to look forward to, I guess. And I guess that's about all I can say. Hate to write, worse to talk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Catherine Lambie from West Point. I just would like to dispel the statement of this previous gentleman that people from Valley Springs and Railroad Flat come to West Point to tell us what to do. I live in West Point. I participated in these discussions, and I want to say I really appreciated Derek. I found that they were not a waste of time. They were fruitful. We negotiated some things that have made a difference for us, and I've appreciated the process. I don't think it was a waste of time. I think it'll make the presence of Dollar General perhaps a little more palatable to some of us in West Point. And no, it was not outsiders coming in to tell us what to do. Thank you.
Annette, did you get her name?
No.
Could you either write your name on the list there, or we'd appreciate that. Thank you. No, I know. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Good morning. My name is Kim Skeen, and I live in Wilseyville in District 2. Although this issue has brought much controversy by some, there are many residents from District 2 who have not yet weighed in on this matter. The following letter expresses my views on the subject, and several other people agreed with it and wanted to sign their name as well. As residents of District 2 who live in West Point and Wilseyville, we are in support of the Dollar General coming to our community for the following reasons. The Dollar General would be a benefit to our local residents as well as to our county. It has been a need for a long time to bring more shopping opportunities to our town, and Dollar General would help fill that need as it carries many household items that are not found in any other store within our county, closer than a 40-minute drive. In the last year, Calaveras County Health and Human Services conducted a survey of Calaveras residents asking to express what they thought were the biggest challenges about living in our county. The results concluded that the number one challenge to residents living in our district was access to shopping. Not only would Dollar General make for a convenient place for people to shop, but with the adjustments made to the exterior plans, it would blend in with our country atmosphere. Because of our county's vast expanse, it is our desire that the county approve other respectable businesses to fill those needs listed in the survey, and in return reap the benefit of additional property and sales tax. Bringing Dollar General to West Point is a win-win situation. We realize that there are those who are in disagreement with this view, and we are sorry about that. It is our hope that they will come to see that this store would not only be good for our community, but also for our county as well. It is our hope that you will take these thoughts into deep consideration and take the opinions of those who live in the town in question first before those in other districts. Please approve Dollar General's plan to come to West Point. Thank you. When I wrote that original letter, my thought was that only a few others would like to sign it as well. Yesterday, I devoted a few hours to go and talk to people, and a few others jumped on board to help. And today I stand before you with 95 signatures on my letter and 5 signatures on a letter written by other resident, with a grand total of 100 signatures in all. I only wish I could have started this project sooner, because I know if I had, I would have been able to gather a lot more signatures from local residents in favor of bringing the Dollar General to West Point. I have a packet to give each of you with the letter with the signatures, as well as the letter from the other resident, and also a postscript from one of the other signers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You can hand those documents to Annette. Is there any other speakers? Good morning.
Hello. Hi there. My name is Jessica Benson, and I'm in District 2, Wilseyville, West Point as well. And Tim, thank you for everything you've done. You've really asked a lot of questions, and you've really stuck to your guns, and I really appreciate it. So I didn't really prepare anything today, and I figured I'd kind of speak from the heart because nothing else is really working at this point. So I appreciate the letter coming from Wilseyville. That's true. We definitely do need other choices, but a corporate store like Dollar General will close everyone else in town, so they will be the only choice. And without a sandwich deli, wide organic produce selection, you name it, it's not necessarily going to be what's going to drive West Point in the right direction. So I shook Carl's hand, we were chatting. He's in favor of fast food restaurants to follow. And in that case, why did I move to a rural community in Northern California that is just going to turn into every other strip mall? West Point does not deserve that. So, and maybe not, maybe it will stay small. Maybe the 5 empty businesses downtown will open with locals that are pumping money into this county, hoping that they will back us up as well. So that's pretty much it. And oh yeah, hold on one second. So let's just say this is the ground, and we're looking at a 10-foot sign. Yeah, can someone help? Oh, okay, good. I was hoping someone was going to do that because I ran out of time. So that is not something that I think is appropriate for West Point. That was a big one for me. I appreciate that it's going to not be lit up from the inside, and I do appreciate working with Derek. I was part of that meeting, and I know the world does not revolve around me, and I appreciate where this project is going to go. So if it must, please continue to listen to us, even if it's not in your... Yes, let's do this.
Okay, so please, we don't usually let people come before the podium because you can trip over cords, and they had set a rule. So please, Holly, be very careful behind you. Thank you.
That wasn't planned, by the way, so maybe both of us are thinking the same thing. But anyways, it's been a long time, so this is kind of where we're at, and it sounds like Dollar General's coming to West Point, and that's that. I don't know if it's possible either to decrease the number of parking spaces, because that would also cause a decrease in lighting, since lighting's a big argument. And also if the lights have a dim setting on them, and I don't know if this necessarily is in regards to the lot split, but the more conditions we can put on the building, the more they will actually follow through, because it's a giant corporate store. They have no reason to follow through for a town like West Point. So, thank you.
Okay, any other public speakers? Morning.
Hello, Lisa.
Hi, Colleen.
You knew you'd hear from me eventually.
No, that's good.
Okay, Colleen Platt with MyValleySprings.com and the Calaveras Planning Coalition. And the comments today and the letters you received have shown that the community is all concerned about the aesthetics of the project. People that support it are concerned about the aesthetics of the project, and that's why we got involved with this, is the aesthetics of the project. The comments by a certain person that members of the public have been holding up the project are not true. The developer met with the public in April 2016 and then did not respond to them. Let it go for over a year. So the first time the public had any response to that first meeting was the following year, in April and May at the Planning Commission hearing in the initial study. So they had given comments all the way along. So they weren't the ones, you know, if they had met with them a year earlier, this would have been 6 months faster. If aesthetics had been addressed in the initial study as requested last fall, 2016, that would have moved along faster. That was not addressed. So it's not the public that's been holding this up, it's been other members of this equation that have held it up. So we've been doing our best to move it forward with aesthetics to match what the community wants. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that situation. And you probably received the comments. We're very happy with the improvements that have been made on the project. We appreciate both the planning department and the applicant working with the community and actually listening to them and incorporating their comments. We're pleased that they are going to incorporate a bike rack as Carl requested. Carl Stoughton also requested natural rocks at the base of the monument sign, and they did not comply with that, but I guess Carl didn't care about that much, but he was part of the planning process also, and he was part of the request for aesthetic improvements. Our remaining concerns, as you know, are lighting. You know, we still think the amount of lighting here is more than is necessary for this historic community. As I think you may have remembered from previous packets that I've submitted to you and photographs, you can't assume that they're going to turn the lights off at night, because they don't always. In Valley Springs, they leave the night lights on all night, all of the lights, the wall and the pole lights. So I'm very pleased that there is a note on the plans here to put them on a timer. And if, as I think it was Mr. Laddish suggested, or somewhere it came up that maybe it was Joe Dell, that they did not even need those wall lights on at nighttime, that would be the very best for the community. If they could just have lights under the overhang and interior lights on for security and not those exterior lights on for security, that would be the best for the community, because this is a dark community. There's residences across the street and just down the street that will be looking at the site all night. So the less you can have there, the better. And our concern with the overall lighting, we haven't figured out yet why this plan still has more overall light than their original plan, June 6th, does. So they've moved things, they lowered poles, they added lights, then they took them back. This final light still has more lighting than the original plan, and especially out at the entry. So, you know, if the original plan was okay with safety for Dollar General, why did they need to increase the lighting? So that was our question here that really wasn't answered. We support the suggestion for lowering those exterior lights that project from the building. We still think one pole light at the entrance would be enough for safety, because you also have a monument sign there that is large, and it has 4 lights lighting the monument sign. So you've already got that. Then you've got a pole light right next to it. So I don't see the reason for a double pole light right next to it. Again, this is for impacts to aesthetics to the community and for safety. We're happy to hear that there is a requirement to have irrigation system on a timer. This is the first we've ever heard of that. We've asked this question for over a month and we never got a response. I don't see that anywhere in county code. I don't see that in any of the project requirements. This would have been nice to have this answered a long time ago, so that we know that the landscaping will be maintained in perpetuity with an irrigation system. I don't see why it's not on the landscape plan.
We've got about 10 seconds left.
Okay, sorry. Anyway, that would have been nice to clarify. Okay. Thank you. You can adjust the plan, so we appreciate whatever you can do. Thank you.
I didn't realize as she was using. Are you using that? I don't need to time it. Okay.
My name is Gloria Grimes. I was born and raised in West Point. I seen a lot of timber come through there, a lot of things. One thing for sure, if anybody that lived in West Point these past year would know, if we had a Dollar General there, we would not be traveling and trying to get down that either way, North Fork, Middle Fork, South Fork, trying to go to Jackson or someplace to buy groceries. A little something. That was really a hardship on all of us up there, and there's nobody can say it wasn't. Secondly, when they talk about this store where it's going to be built, the Dollar General, Volcano Workshop is there, the realty store is there, of course Ace Hardware is there. So I'm not going to say I'm up here, I know all about these roads and water and all that stuff, but I would personally hope that all of us in West Point, the majority of the people, hope that we will get this Dollar General. Thank you. I'll sign my name.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hi,
Good morning.
my name's Susan Morse, and I'm from Angels Camp. I am not from District 2. However, I did receive the Calaveras Health and Human Services Agency's latest community health needs assessment that they released a preliminary result in the last couple days, or not last couple days, last couple weeks. And I just wanted to bring, I think that one of the previous speakers did mention the needs in county-wise, shopping is number 1, and in District 2, shopping is up the top 5 in all of the different zip codes. But one thing, they were talking about lighting, and for West Point, and on this survey that they did for the community needs, what they did is it was, what are the community's challenges, and that's countywide, but they did it by district, and what do you like best? And in West Point, I wanted to bring up the fact that you were talking about lighting in the store. There's 27 different items that they could pick for challenges, plus they could add others under another category. Out of 27, in West Point, crime was 5. So it might be a good idea to have lights out there, so the residents and the employees and anybody else has safety. And that's just what I wanted to add. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Linda Smith. I'm from West Point and a business owner up there on Highway 26. I feel that this Dollar General is definitely a plus for the community. We have so many seniors up there. We have so many people that don't drive. The transportation up there is very limited. You want to get up at 6 in the morning to ride the transit down to shop and wait in Jackson all day and then come back that evening. Well, more power to you. Most of us don't. And my business is a Cozy Cabin Cafe right on 26, across the street from the gas station and the trading post. Those two places have been burglarized numerous times. And the lighting is definitely a plus. We have lighting on the cafe, mainly for that reason. We also have an alarm system. You have nothing up there for young people to do. So when they're out and about at night, they're getting into mischief. You've got all these new businesses, quote unquote, pot growers, and everybody approves of that in the lower communities. They should have asked the people of West Point. Anyway, I think the Dollar General would be a tremendous benefit to all of us, business owners included. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Holly Mines. I think most of you up here recognize me because I've been to a lot of meetings before, and I'm also the one who is known as the interferer from out of town because I live between Wilseyville and West Point. Wilseyville and Railroad Flat. So but I was, in reading the packet and all the information about the Dollar General store, my community is one of the communities that's expected to patronize this store. And I go to West Point frequently for other things. So honestly, I feel like I do belong to the community, even though I don't live in whatever technically might be defined as West Point. I also, I had a whole bunch of comments which I think have already been addressed, and I do want to begin by expressing my appreciation to the planning department and to the commissioners for the time that you've put into it, and of course in particular Tim, since he's from our district. I also kind of want to extend a fig leaf to Donna and Steve Rose, whom I have not seen once since this process began. I used to see Donna in the post office all the time, and I guess maybe you're not working there anymore. Right. But I want them to understand, at least from my point of view, and I'm not trying to speak for the whole community, I think that they will see, or they might have seen already with the plans that now exist, that this store is going to be a lot nicer store and serve the community in a lot better way because of the process that has been undertaken to make sure that the interests of all the people in the community were consulted. I will also say that I was the one that called the original public meeting to which Mr. Dell attended. And I kept the list of all the people. I called people. I emailed them every time there was a meeting, there was an opportunity, and I got very little response. So it's not that people were not informed, and I know how difficult it is to get people out to come to meetings. One other point that I wanted to make is with reference to the comments that Carl Baker made of Caltrans. I fully understand his position and how difficult it is to take one little project or one big project, whatever you want to call it, like the Dollar General, and put all the problems of the surrounding area onto that project. However, what it points out to me in the process of examining this particular project, Dollar General says, well, we have to do what the county requires. Well, what is your requirement about lighting? We don't have a lighting plan. What is your requirement about signage? Well, we have a certain number of square feet. That's it. We, in this county, I came to almost all of your discussion about the general plan. I followed particularly the housing element because I was particularly interested in that. And my message that I got from both the Planning Commission and the board was, let's keep it simple. Let's limit the words, and then on a case-by-case basis, we'll make decisions. Judging from the complaints I've heard about this process, going on a case-by-case basis takes way, way longer than if you have a really well-designed general plan and it coincides, it interacts with the COG and the regional transportation plans and other plans. Then you have a picture, a really clear picture of what you want your community to be, where you're going, both as a county and with the community plans, where the communities are going. So when somebody comes up before you and says, this is what I want to do, you can answer the questions before they see anybody in the public about what's required or how, what's the vision of the community. So I hope that's not being tangential to this discussion, but I really do feel like the process we've gone through here, which I think was very fair, and I do want to thank particularly Derek Wilson for coming all the way from Reno to meet with us at that meeting. and really listening to what we said. If I recall correctly, he said, gee, I'd like to have a committee like you work with me all the time. You have such great ideas. Didn't you say something like that? Yeah. So it wasn't a contentious, nasty meeting. It was a very productive meeting. And so, anyway, my point is that we want the best for the whole community. I think the Roses will be very happy with the final product, and I think everybody sitting here who's said that they want it will be a lot happier than what it would have been if we had just said, okay, whatever you want, put it up. Thank you very much.
My name is Steve Rose. I'm one of the owners of this particular piece of property. And I like to start to say that about 18 years ago, me and my wife tried to put a store in across the street from the lumberyard. We have some more property. And we worked on that for years to try to put approximately the same size store, about 10,000 feet. And because of our not having the backing, everybody treated you like you were a Walmart. Every agency had their hands out for money. The water district charged ridiculous fees just to put a store in. And we finally gave up on that. Caltrans wouldn't work with us. County Road Works did better. But I feel that if that store has been in, would it be still in there for 18 years, I think of how established it would be, the tax revenue the county would have made off it, the employment it would have employed, and we finally gave up. We weren't a Walmart. The costs to do these projects are just unbelievable. We have an opportunity with Dollar General came to me, and they have the deeper pockets, something that we did not have. And I just feel that they're putting a need that we really need up there. And as far as this piece of lot here, I could have sold the whole piece to Dollar General, and none of this would be happening. The store would have been built over a year ago because it didn't need to have all these hearings and all these meetings to do this. But my thought is if I can get two pieces out of that, maybe I could put another business up there on that same piece of property, which would help improve the town. And it just seems like it's tough to put anything in anymore. It's really tough. And I feel this would be a real good project for this town, and hopefully I could have something behind that store in the other lot that would improve the town and have a business. And I got quite a few choices. My first choice was to put a storage unit on there. Well, how aesthetic looking is that? You know, something I can make money at, but that's what the choice would have been, storage units. So, you know, that would look pretty terrible there. And as far as, you know, the address says Main Street, but this store is not connected with Main Street. Main Street still has their character, what it already has. And if we want Main Street to look better, we need to have on-street parking again for the commercial lots. There is no lot big enough to put a building in there and parking, since you have to have on-site parking. And if we go back to the way Sutter Creek is, or Jackson, we need on-street parking and maybe a handicap parking spot somewhere. But these little towns have no place to grow. The town is never going to grow without being able to relax the rules a little bit. Every time a building burns down or leaves, we're stuck with the empty lot because we cannot build anything on there. You cannot put enough parking for the building for the square footage. So I think the town needs to look at that aspect of it. And I can see businesses coming in because we won't have the output of money it takes to develop anything. And I'm happy to see that they have the deep pockets to do it because me and my wife wouldn't be able to do this. There's just no way. Money just never stops going. Anyway, hopefully we can just go forward.
Thank you. Is there any further public comment? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment period and bring it back to Gina. Do you have anything further you'd like to say?
I don't believe so. I think just maybe clarification. We'll wait and hear what the rest of the commission says, but if we're going to entertain approval, then I think we need to kind of hone in and clarify the changes that I think we've made during the process.
Do you have anything you'd like to add at this point? Okay. All right, well then we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the commissioners for discussion. And I would agree, Gina, there was a revised resolution brought forward at last minute that I looked over last night. I think those issues need to be reviewed as well to make sure the commissioners are where we need to be looking at those items. I think you played a role in adding to that. So, and then I know that he made some suggested changes, but I don't think that we took any polls on any changes that were recommended that you were writing down and we all were writing down. So we're going to need to poll the commissioner on any changes that you wrote down as well.
Okay.
So why don't we start with Commissioner Wooster, if you have anything that you want to address in this?
Well, I don't have a complete list of issues, but I do remember some. With respect to the wood chips versus rock mulch issue, it seems to me that wood chips in front only ought to be sufficient, given the difficulties that have been pointed out with respect to them. With respect to the wall lights coming off the plan, I'm not in favor of doing that. I think there needs to be some flexibility for the people who are running this building.
I'm sorry, I missed that first sentence about the lighting. I couldn't
The
understand.
wall lights,
Okay.
there was a suggestion that the reference to them being as permitted on the lighting diagram be taken off so that they would not be allowed. I'm not in favor of that. I think they ought to remain there so that the operator can use them if they need to. With respect to the exterior lighting, I'm prepared to go with the professionals on this and not reduce the lighting any further. With respect to the signage, if the developer is willing to go to a 4x8, I suppose that's okay. I do have some issues with the resolution, but I can take those up later, in particular the suggestions put forth by Commissioner Laddish, or I can do it now.
Let's find out what the others think, and then we can make those changes all at once on the resolution, if you're okay with that?
Yes.
Okay.
My concern again is the lighting. We talked about it last time we were here. We're talking about it again. Last time there was a picture, and it's in here. I'm sorry. Last time we were here, and it's here again, these pictures of the other stores, like the ones in Valley Springs. That's a big concern. I don't want it to see lit up like that. The sign being smaller, I like the idea of the sign being smaller. It's a small community. It doesn't need a huge sign out front. The other things that were in the letter that I don't agree with, there doesn't need to be a bulletin board. It's not their responsibility to put a bulletin board out in front of the store or the bench. I don't think that the awning needs to be made bigger for shade for customers. It's not a hangout, it's a store. I'd like to hear what everybody else has to say, I guess, but those were my main things.
On the sign size, I suspect the 4x8 sign would look much better. When I look at the Valley Springs Dollar General store, I can't believe you guys make signs like that. It drives me nuts. Yes, I'm sure there are studies that show that bright yellow color and those big bold letters grab the attention of the drivers. You know that's why you do it. But make them a little smaller. And it's not just the size of the font. The letters themselves, I think, should be smaller. I'd also love to see you use a little bit less bright version of yellow, but I guess that's not before us. One quick question, though, is that the sign over the main entrance appears to be a different yellow, a more tan color. Am I just seeing that or wishing that? Is that? In any event, it's a little better than the Valley Springs version, which has 3 gigantic signs, one of which is a 2-sided one. So I guess I should look at the positive side of it. But if you guys are willing to do the 4x8, that's at least some improvement on it. I'm a little disappointed that the awning wasn't converted into the portico or the porch or whatever, but I guess that's beyond us. I do think you could have done that, and you could have done it from the beginning. But I also think the Dollar General store will be a boon for, or at least a positive for West Point. So, Mr. Ladd, I suspect you have some comments.
I agree that I think the community and the developer and the planning department have done a magnificent job. And what I started off thinking was going to be an appalling addition to West Point, I think is going to be fitting in much better. And as you can say, I'm assuming it's going to be there. But one of the reasons I brought up the Winters store was if the sign was, the monument sign was going to be interior lit, I would like it with the yellow letters being lit. But I can understand, since we've established it's going to be a direct lit sign, that you need to keep it the way it is. The projecting lights, I was mainly concerned about those during the non-business hour areas. And I understand you have budgetary problems, there are limits, and so even though I don't like them, I think the projecting lights on the building, as long as they are not going to be lit at night, since they are so high and this sort of thing, are not a deal breaker from my point of view. I do think the lighting plan needs to reflect, well, that the under note number 6, and I understand that the developers agreed to this, we can eliminate the last sentence. A few of the wall packs are set from dawn to dusk, or dusk to dawn for security purposes, and we could add a sentence, the dusk to dawn light will be at the entrance to the store under the awning, leaving you some flexibility as whether it's outside, inside, or whatever. I am concerned about the amount of light that's hitting the parking lot and reflecting back up into the sky, and particularly the double light out at the front, especially with the monument sign being right next to it. I would I'm not going to formally propose that be turned into a single light, but I would appreciate a reconsideration on your part as to whether that double light is actually needed. I think we need to, on the sign details sheet, as agreed to by the developer, indicate that that's a 4-foot by 6-foot the sign part is 4 foot by 8 foot. And I think we need to have a note on the signage details that indicates that it's direct lit, not lit from within. And I will also have some suggestions on the resolution. But at this point, and I can see where we're going on wood chips, and I don't think that's something that we're going to make or break the community. I'm very pleased to know that the irrigation plan, by listing its various regimes, and also that the planning department assures us that there will be timers, so the irrigation, we can count on the irrigation happening when it's supposed to. And by the way, I commend you for your irrigation, for your landscape planning. I think those plants although they're starting as 1 gallon plants with proper irrigation and care, it's going to be, overall, I think you're reaching a point where this will not be a terrible detriment to the community in its appearance, and it's going to certainly provide a function that the community wants.
Great, thank you. Okay, so it sounds like there's a consensus here for the 4x8 sign as well as your agreement possibly on that, so that was good. On the chips, I'm going to agree with Commissioner Wooster. To me, the rock chips are better. I live up in the tree mortality area, and I know what those wood chips can do. I know how they combust and they start fires. So that's an issue for me. But if everyone feels that going with the wood chips out front, fine, I'm okay with that. I don't think there was any disagreements. I think we all pretty much are on the same page, and we can start on the resolution. I would make one comment though, and that is on the dollar store or the general store, dollar store in Arnold, we haven't lost any businesses that are competitive to it. They have all actually all have worked well together. They complement each other. We're a small town just like West Point, and it's on the highway. Our speed limit's 45 going past there, not 35 or 25. And it seems to be serving a really good purpose for the community. So I think we're to the point where we can turn to the resolution and start defining. I think we're pretty much in agreement across the board here as to what we see as good. So if we want to clean up the resolution a little bit, add a few things that we talked about, you have something you want to add?
Well, I'm just thinking, as far as the resolution goes, I made suggestions, but these, this isn't all my language, but it might be reasonable for me to start with comments on the resolution if you want.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if I could add one thing as far as the changes that you've discussed and appears to agree to, which are, as I understand, the size of the sign and to verify that the lighting of the sign is not internal, it's external illumination. I would recommend that we modify mitigation measure 1C to add that language, and I would add at the last sentence after signage, including reducing the size of the sign to 4 foot by 8 foot and specifying that it is not internally lit. And then we can add under the therefore be it resolved, where we reference a sign plan, we can say as modified.
Okay.
So that we modify the mitigation measure and include that modification in their final findings.
I'm in agreement with that. Do the rest of you all agree?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
As far as the resolution goes, my concern was that we didn't have the chain of events that had happened between the last meeting and this meeting. And also, at the last meeting, since we were heading toward a 2-to-1 vote, and that isn't sufficient to take an official action, I think we ought to give the developer credit for taking the opportunity to refer back to the community, and that the whereas at the bottom of page 1 of the revised resolution, I think it should be whereas the developer concurred, and should that be double R? Concurred. With the suggestion of a continuance and referral, and just put a period there, because the developer at that point was not going to get a denial that day.
Say that again.
Well, we couldn't, we were advised by legal counsel that we could not take an official action with 2 members of the committee.
Well, no, I don't think that's necessarily accurate, because the lack of a vote to affirmatively approve the project is effectively a denial.
Well, still, I'd like to give the developer credit, but
so whereas it doesn't really matter that much. I'm comfortable with the proposed changes as long as we have the rest of the commission concurs.
And the previous, excuse me, I'm sorry.
So this whereas the developer concurred with the suggestion of referral in lieu of denial of the
No,
project?
just concurred with the suggestion of a continuance and referral, period.
Thank you, because that wasn't my thing.
Sorry.
I appreciate it.
The next previous whereas sentence, I think it should be, whereas the commission continued with the matter to a date uncertain, to give time for staff instead of directing staff, because my understanding is we could not officially direct with the form that we had. Since you're
We had 3 votes to ask
Yeah.
them to go back, so
Okay.
we were directing
We
them
were
to do
directing.
that.
Okay, that's fine. That's great. And under general conditions by the planning commission, and I'm subject to being corrected on this.
Can you tell me what page you're on?
Of the last page of the revised.
Okay, got it, thank you, page 4.
I put in 1.4, taking the same language as up in 1.1, the applicants and owners and their heirs, successors, and then signs, and then I would say shall abide by the mitigation measures set forth in the initial study dated July 7th, 2017, and its attachments as amended August 24th, 2017.
Does that need to be I-4, or can you just edit I-1?
Well, I think it's a different subject.
I would agree. I think it's a different subject. It would be better as a separate condition.
Do you want me to go through that again,
Please.
Peter? Yeah. So the first part is all the way through shall abide is exactly the same as number 1. By the mitigation measures set forth in the initial study dated July 7, 2017, and its attachment 1, the number figure, as amended, effective August 24th, 2017.
Thank you. That was all your notes?
That's all I know.
Okay. Everybody is okay with his notes as we go so far?
He has fixed the issues that I had.
Okay. You're good? All right. Well, then I think we are ready for a motion as amended. Is somebody want to make a motion on that?
We do have, we've changed the language in the mitigated, and then as far as the location of the documents and monitoring, do we need, I mean, the guidelines say we should have something.
We have the information here. I think we're okay. It's basically, it'll be reviewed at the building permit stage. I think it says that in the mitigation measures themselves. So I think the mitigation measures are self-monitoring.
Thank you.
So yes, the motion should include the changes to the mitigation measure 1C.
Okay, well, I move that what is the proper term here? We approve the development, the resolution as amended, and with the mitigated negative declaration as amended, including the amendments to the exhibits that we've been discussing since we all agreed to. May not be very clear, but do I deserve a second on that?
I'll second it. I'll second it.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right. And it's 12 o'clock straight up. We'll be,
And for the record, this action is final today unless appealed to the Board of Supervisors within 15 calendar days.
and we'll reconvene at 1 o'clock.